The klaxons aboard Research Station Helios screamed through the darkness of deep space. Lieutenant Kira Harrison's boots echoed against the metal flooring as she sprinted through the emergency-lit corridors, her heart pounding against her ribcage. The station's AI repeated its warning in an eerily calm voice, "Unknown entity detected. Security breach in sectors 7 through 12. All personnel proceed to emergency stations." Kira knew better than to follow that protocol. As head of station security, she needed to reach the quantum research lab. Whatever had broken through their defenses was heading there with frightening precision. "Status report," she barked into her comm unit while checking the charge on her pulse rifle. Static answered her. The communication network was down, a professional job. She'd been in enough combat situations to recognize the telltale signs of a coordinated attack. The research station housed the most advanced quantum tunnel experiments in human history. Director Patel had warned about potential security threats, but no one had expected anything like this. The outer defense grid had been bypassed as if it didn't exist. As she rounded the corner to Sector 9, she froze. 3 security officers lay motionless on the ground, their weapons unfired. No blood, no signs of struggle, they'd been taken out with terrifying efficiency. The air itself seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly frequency that made her teeth ache. That's when she saw it, or rather, saw the absence of something. A moving shadow, darker than the darkness itself, flowing like liquid night through the corridor. The figure materialized fully under the emergency lights, and Kira's breath caught in her throat. The assassin stood nearly 7 feet tall, its form covered in armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was the eyes that captured Kira's attention, spiral galaxies of silver and violet that seemed to hold ancient wisdom and terrible purpose. "Hold position," Kira commanded, raising her rifle. "This is a restricted facility under Earth Federation protection." The being tilted its head, studying her with those impossible eyes. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in her mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "Your weapons are ineffective, child of Earth. The quantum bridge must not be completed." Before Kira could respond, the assassin moved. One moment it was 20 feet away, the next it was beside her. Her combat training kicked in, she fired 3 rapid bursts, rolled to the side, and came up in a defensive stance. The energy pulses passed through where the being had been, leaving scorch marks on the wall. The fight that followed was unlike anything in Kira's experience. The assassin moved like water, like shadow, like thought itself. Her best strikes met empty air, her shots passed through afterimages. She was fighting a ghost, a nightmare, a piece of the void given form. Then it happened. A mistake. Her foot slipped on the polished floor, and she went down hard. The assassin stood over her, raising a blade that hummed with dark energy. Kira looked up, defiant to the end, waiting for the killing stroke. But it never came. The alien's eyes locked onto hers, and something passed between them, a recognition, an understanding that neither of them could explain. The blade stopped inches from her throat. "Impossible," the being whispered in her mind. "You carry the mark." The resonance, after all these cycles. Before Kira could process what that meant, alarms blared with renewed urgency. The quantum lab's containment protocols were failing. The assassin's head snapped toward the source of the alarm, then back to Kira. "The others were necessary sacrifices," it said. "But you must survive. What comes next requires your existence." With that, the being seemed to dissolve into shadow, leaving Kira alone with her racing thoughts and the bodies of her fallen comrades. She struggled to her feet as emergency teams finally arrived, their questions washing over her like white noise. Her mind was fixed on the assassin's words, on those eyes that had seen something in her, something that had stayed its hand. In the days that followed, as she gave her reports and attended the memorials for the fallen, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that her survival wasn't just chance. The assassin's words echoed in her dreams, what comes next requires your existence. She didn't know it then, but that encounter would be the first thread in a tapestry of events that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. The Quantum Bridge project was shut down, the station decommissioned, but Kira's story was just beginning. As she stared out at the stars from her quarters one night, she made a decision. She would find answers, understand what the assassin had seen in her, and discover why she alone had been spared. The universe, it seemed, had plans for Lieutenant Kira Harrison, plans that would challenge everything she thought she knew about reality itself. Shadows of Truth. 6 months after the Helios incident, Kira found herself deep in the underbelly of Luna City, following whispers and fragments of information about the mysterious Nyx Collective. Her resignation from the Earth Federation security force had raised eyebrows, but she couldn't pursue the truth while bound by their regulations. The neon glow of the lunar colony's lower levels cast strange shadows through the perpetual mist of recycled air. Kira adjusted her civilian stealth suit, a poor substitute for military gear, but it helped her blend in with the mercenaries and information brokers that populated these levels. "You're late," growled a gravelly voice. From the shadows emerged Rook, a scarred information broker who specialized in off-world intelligence. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. "Dangerous questions you've been asking, Harrison. About things that don't want to be found." "I've got the credits," Kira said, keeping her hand near the concealed pulse pistol at her hip. "Do you have what I need?" Rook produced a data crystal, its surface swimming with encrypted information. "Archaeological data from the Proxima dig sites. Classified stuff. Shows they found something before the incident, something that scared the hell out of the research team." Kira's pulse quickened. The Proxima excavation had been shut down 3 weeks before the attack on Helios. She'd found the timing suspicious, but all records had been classified beyond her previous security clearance. "The artifacts they uncovered," Rook continued, his cybernetic eye glowing brighter, "they're connected to your shadow friends. Same energy signature, same impossible physics. But here's the real kicker, they're over 50 million years old." Before Kira could respond, her neural implant buzzed a warning. Multiple heat signatures converging on their position. "We've got company," she hissed, but Rook was already moving. "Back exit," he growled, tossing her the crystal. "Don't let them take you alive. The ones in black, they're not human anymore." The wall behind them exploded inward. Through the debris stepped 3 figures in familiar light-absorbing armor, but these were different from her assassin. Their movements were jerky, mechanical, as if something was wearing human form without quite understanding how it worked. The crystal, they spoke in unison, their voices carrying that same mind-touching resonance. "Surrender it and be spared." Kira dove behind a fallen support beam as energy bolts scorched the air where she'd been standing. Rook had vanished, typical broker behavior. She returned fire, but her shot seemed to bend around their armor, as if reality itself was protecting them. Then she felt it, that familiar vibration in her teeth, the one she'd experienced on Helios. But this time, something was different. The crystal in her pocket began to hum in harmony with the frequency, and for a moment, the world seemed to shift. She saw them as they truly were, not beings in armor, but fragments of something vast and dark, pressed into human shape. They were puppets, she realized with horror, tools of something far more terrible than she'd imagined. Acting on instinct, she pulled out the crystal and held it up. The humming intensified, and the attackers stopped, their false forms flickering like bad holograms. "You carry the key," they said, their unified voice distorting. "The awakening approaches. You cannot prevent what comes." The crystal pulsed once, brilliantly, and the attackers collapsed into piles of inert black liquid that quickly evaporated. Kira stood shakily, staring at the seemingly innocent data crystal in her hand. It was warm to the touch, and she could have sworn she saw patterns swimming in its depths that hadn't been there before. Her neural implant chimed with an incoming transmission. The ID was scrambled, but she recognized the mental touch of the voice. you begin to understand, child of Earth. But understanding brings danger. They will come for you now, the ones who would twist the awakening to their purpose. Find the Temple of Dawn on Mars. Answers await. The transmission ended, leaving Kira with more questions than answers. She pocketed the crystal and moved quickly through the back alleys of Luna City, her mind racing. The Temple of Dawn was a myth, a supposed alien structure buried beneath the Martian poles that had spawned countless conspiracy theories. But she'd just seen the impossible. Perhaps it was time to start believing in myths. As she made her way to the spaceport, she accessed the crystal's data through her neural interface. Images flashed through her mind, ancient structures on distant worlds, artifacts that defied physics, and most disturbing of all, evidence of a cycle, civilizations rising and falling in patterns that couldn't be coincidental. Whatever the Nyx Collective was, whatever her assassin represented, they were part of something far older and more terrible than she'd imagined. The awakening they spoke of wasn't just a threat to humanity, it was something that had happened before, something that had ended entire galaxies. And somehow, she was the key to either preventing it or ensuring it happened. The weight of that responsibility settled over her like a shroud as she booked passage to Mars under a false identity. She didn't know why she had been chosen, what the mark the assassin had seen in her meant, but she knew one thing with certainty: the answers lay buried in the red sands of Mars, in a temple that wasn't supposed to exist. As her ship broke lunar orbit, Kira watched Earth recede into the distance. Somewhere out there, ancient forces were stirring, and time was running out. The crystal hummed softly in her pocket, like a countdown to something inevitable. The game had changed. She wasn't just seeking answers anymore, she was racing against the end of everything. The awakening. The Martian dust storm raged outside the ancient airlock as Kira finally breached the outer defenses of the Temple of Dawn. The structure wasn't just buried under the polar ice as rumored, it was alive, responding to her presence, to the crystal that pulsed with increasing urgency against her chest. 2 weeks of avoiding Earth Federation patrols and private military contractors had led her here. The coordinates hidden in the crystal's data had been precise, revealing an entrance that hadn't been visible until she'd approached with the artifact. The temple's surface had simply shifted, creating an opening that seemed to welcome her specifically. "Remarkable, isn't it?" The voice came from behind her, both in her mind and in the air. Kira spun, weapon raised, to find her assassin standing there, armor gleaming with an inner light she hadn't noticed before. "Lower your weapon, Kira Harrison. If I wished you harm, you would not have survived our first encounter." "You know my name," Kira said, keeping her weapon steady. "But I don't know yours. I am Zaravel, guardian of the seventh seal. And you are far more than Kira Harrison, though you do not yet understand why." The temple hummed around them, its walls shifting with patterns that seemed to respond to their conversation. Zaravel moved forward, her movements liquid grace, and gestured at their surroundings. "This is not merely a temple," she explained. "It is a key, a lock, and a warning all at once. Built by those who came before, those who understood the cycle and tried to break it." The crystal suddenly burned hot against Kira's chest. She pulled it out, and it floated from her hand, expanding into a holographic display that filled the chamber. Stars, galaxies, entire clusters of reality spread out before them, and within the cosmic dance, she saw something moving, something vast and dark and hungry. "The entity," Zaravel said softly. "Ancient beyond meaning, sleeping between the stars. Every few million years, it stirs, and civilizations fall. The Nyx Collective was formed to prevent its full awakening, to maintain the seals that keep it dreaming." "And the attack on Helios?" Kira asked, beginning to understand. "The quantum bridge would have created a resonance that weakened one of the seals. Your scientists, brilliant but blind, nearly broke one of the chains that bind the entity. We had to act." Kira watched as the hologram zoomed in on familiar stars, their solar system, but millions of years ago. She saw great ships, impossible cities, and then, darkness. A cycle of extinction and rebirth played out before her eyes. But something is different this time, Zaravel continued. The entity stirs too soon, and the seals are failing faster than ever before. And then there is you. The hologram shifted, focusing on Kira herself. But what she saw wasn't entirely human. Threads of energy coursed through her projected form, forming patterns that matched the temple's walls. Your ancestors, Zaravel explained, were not just humans. Among them were survivors of the last cycle, guardians who chose to hide among humanity, to preserve their knowledge in subtle ways. Their blood runs in your veins, dormant until now. The revelation hit Kira like a physical blow. That's why you couldn't kill me. You recognized your heritage, yes. But it is more than that. You are a nexus point, a culmination of carefully guided bloodlines. You have the potential to become something that has not existed for millions of years, a true guardian, one who can repair the seals permanently. Before Kira could process this, alarms blared through the temple. The walls pulsed red, and Zaravel's posture shifted to one of alert tension. They have found us, she hissed. The corrupted ones, former guardians who believe the entity can be controlled, used as a weapon. They have been infiltrating governments, corporations, pushing technology in directions that weaken the seals. The temple shuddered as something massive impacted the surface above. Dust and ice rained from the ceiling, and the hologram flickered and died. There is no more time for explanation, Zaravel said urgently. You must choose now, Kira Harrison. I can awaken your heritage, but the process is dangerous and irreversible. You will no longer be fully human. Another impact rocked the temple. Through the chaos, Kira heard them, multiple voices speaking in that same resonant tone, but twisted, wrong somehow. The corrupted ones were coming. They cannot be allowed to take you, Zaravel pressed. With your potential, they could force the entity's awakening. Billions would die. Reality itself would bend to its hunger. Kira looked at her hands, remembering all the strange moments in her life that suddenly made sense, her intuition that had saved her squad countless times, her ability to sense danger before it arrived, the way technology sometimes behaved oddly around her. The temple's walls began to crack as their attackers drew closer. She could hear them breaking through the outer defenses, their corrupted voices singing a song of entropy and ending. Do it, Kira said, meeting Zaravel's spiral galaxy eyes. Wake me up. The guardian nodded and pressed her hand to Kira's forehead. The world exploded into light and knowledge and pain, and Kira screamed as millions of years of genetic memory cascaded through her consciousness. Above them, the Temple of Dawn trembled under assault, as below, a new guardian awakened to face the coming darkness. Trial by fire. Awareness returned to Kira in waves of sensation and power she had never imagined possible. Her mind expanded beyond her body, connecting with the temple's ancient systems, understanding its language as if she had known it all her life. Through newly awakened senses, she could feel the entity stirring in the void between galaxies, its dark dreams threatening to become reality. The corrupted ones were breaching the final chamber. Their twisted energy signatures burned like acid against her new awareness. Beside her, Zaravel moved into a defensive stance, her armor resonating with the same frequency as the temple walls. Your transformation is incomplete, Zaravel warned. But we have no choice. Fight with me, Sister Guardian. Remember what you are. Knowledge flooded through Kira's consciousness, combat forms practiced for millennia, the manipulation of quantum fields, the true nature of reality's fabric. Her body moved with newfound grace as she channeled energy through pathways that had lain dormant in her genes. The chamber doors exploded inward. Through the debris stepped 5 figures that hurt to look at, guardians whose forms had been twisted by their communion with the entity. Their armor writhed with dark energy, and their eyes burned with insane purpose. The nexus point, their voices sang in horrible harmony. Give her to us, Zaravel. The awakening cannot be prevented. It must be controlled. You understand nothing, Zaravel replied, her blade materializing from shadow. The entity cannot be controlled. It is entropy itself, the end of all things. The battle that followed defied physics. Kira and Zaravel moved as one, their guardian powers intertwining. Where Kira's untrained abilities faltered, Zaravel's experience filled the gaps. Together, they were a storm of light against the corrupted darkness. But they were outnumbered, and Kira's new powers were still unstable. A blast of void energy caught her in the chest, sending her sprawling. Reality rippled around her as her concentration slipped. You feel it, don't you? One of the corrupted ones spoke directly into her mind. The power. The potential. Join us, and you could be more than a guardian. You could be a god. For a moment, Kira felt it, the temptation, the whispered promises of the entity seeping through the corrupted one's presence. Ultimate power, the ability to reshape reality itself. Then she remembered the hologram, the cycles of extinction, countless civilizations falling to feed an endless hunger. She pushed back against the darkness, drawing on her awakened heritage. I've seen what your promises lead to, she snarled, rising to her feet. Energy coursed through her body, responding to her resolve. I choose something else. The temple's systems responded to her will. Ancient defenses awakened, targeting the corrupted ones with beams of pure light. Kira moved with newfound certainty, her powers stabilizing as she accepted her true nature. But victory came at a cost. The temple, damaged by the battle, began to collapse. Warning signals blared through its neural network. The seals, Zaravel shouted over the chaos. The damage is too extensive. If the temple falls. Kira understood. This facility didn't just house knowledge, it maintained one of the primary seals keeping the entity in its dreamless sleep. If it failed. There's another way, she said, the knowledge rising from her awakened memories. The first guardians, they didn't just build the seals. They became them. Their sacrifice powered the barriers. Zaravel's eyes widened. You're not strong enough. The transformation isn't complete. Then help me complete it. The remaining corrupted ones launched another attack, but Kira raised a barrier of pure energy, buying them precious seconds. The temple groaned around them, its foundations cracking. If we do this, Zaravel warned, there is no returning to your old life. You will become something else entirely. Kira thought of Earth, of all the worlds she had seen in the hologram, of civilizations yet to rise and fall. Some sacrifices are worth making. The chamber filled with blinding light as Zaravel initiated the final stage of Kira's transformation. Knowledge and power poured into her, burning away the last traces of her human limitations. The temple's systems recognized what was happening and responded, its remaining energy flowing into the metamorphosis. The corrupted ones screamed in rage and fear as they realized what was happening, but it was too late. Kira felt herself expanding, becoming one with the seal, her consciousness spreading across space and time. The Temple of Dawn collapsed, taking the corrupted ones with it. But deep beneath the Martian surface, a new seal pulsed with power, a guardian's sacrifice transformed into an unbreakable barrier. And somewhere in the void between stars, an ancient entity stirred in its sleep, feeling the chains of its prison strengthen once more. Beyond the veil. A year passed in the wake of the temple's destruction. The entity's stirring subsided, but the war was far from over. Through the vast network of seals, Kira's expanded consciousness touched countless worlds, watching as the remaining guardians fought to prevent the corrupted ones from undoing her sacrifice. She existed now as both energy and matter, a being of pure quantum potential bound to the fabric of spacetime. Through her awareness, she felt Zaravel moving through the galaxy, gathering uncorrupted guardians, preparing for the battles yet to come. But something was changing. In her state of eternal vigilance, Kira detected a new pattern emerging. Humanity, guided by the subtle influence of dormant guardian genes, was evolving faster than any species in the previous cycles. Their quantum research, though dangerous, had brought them closer to understanding the true nature of reality than any civilization before them. Through the SEAL network, she reached out to Zaravel. "They're ready." The Guardian materialized in the quantum space where Kira's consciousness was strongest. "Are you certain?" "The risks. The old way is failing," Kira's thoughts resonated through the network. "Each cycle, the SEALs grow weaker. The entity grows stronger. We need something new." She shared her observations, humanity's unique potential, their ability to adapt and overcome, the scattered Guardian bloodlines growing stronger with each generation. Unlike the previous cycles, humanity had developed not in isolation, but with dormant Guardian influence guiding them. A synthesis, Zaravel understood. Not just Guardians protecting humanity, but humanity becoming Guardians themselves. "The corrupted ones believe the entity can be controlled through force," Kira explained. "But there's another way. Humanity's greatest strength isn't their technology or their Guardian heritage, it's their capacity for change, for finding new solutions to ancient problems." Through her expanded awareness, Kira showed Zaravel the possible futures. Humanity, guided by awakened Guardians, could develop technologies that worked with the SEALs rather than weakening them. The quantum bridges they'd attempted could be refined, turned from potential dangers into tools for strengthening reality's fabric. "It would mean revealing ourselves," Zaravel cautioned. "Breaking millions of years of secrecy." "The old ways brought us here," Kira responded. "The entity stirs because the universe has grown stagnant, locked in cycles of repetition. Change is needed." In her consciousness, Kira felt the impact her sacrifice had already had. The SEAL she'd become wasn't just stronger than the original, it was adaptive, evolving, strengthened by the human aspect she'd retained. Finally, Zaravel nodded. "I will gather the council. But they will want proof that humanity is ready." "Then let's give them proof," Kira's energy pulsed with determination. "Start with the ones like me, the bloodlines where Guardian heritage runs strongest. Show them what they can become. Let them choose, as I did. And the corrupted ones? We'll find that humanity isn't the easy prey they imagined. Guardian powers combined with human innovation, it's something they've never faced before." The decision rippled through the SEAL network, a paradigm shift millions of years in the making. Across Earth, individuals with dormant Guardian genes began experiencing strange dreams, their hidden potential stirring to life. The corrupted ones' carefully laid plans began to unravel as humanity's path took an unexpected turn. In her quantum state, Kira watched as the future unwound and rewove itself. Her sacrifice hadn't just strengthened a SEAL, it had broken a cycle that had persisted since the dawn of consciousness in the galaxy. A new age was beginning, one where humanity and Guardians would face the darkness together. The entity still slept in the void, its dark dreams touching countless worlds. But for the first time in millions of years, the SEALs that bound it were not simply maintaining stasis, they were growing stronger. Through the quantum fields, Kira felt Zaravel beginning her work on Earth, felt the first awakenings of new Guardians, sensed the shock waves of change spreading through the galaxy. She had given up her human form, but in doing so, she had given humanity a future beyond anything they had imagined. And in the space between moments, in the quantum realm where her consciousness now dwelled, Kira smiled. The true awakening was just beginning. The end.